welcome to Homemaker Living. I'm Teresa and today we're in my kitchen. We're going to be doing a follow-up on some tomato plants that I potted up in a previous video. I normally don't garden in the winter, but these little guys decided they wanted to pop out of their seeds when I was doing some seed saving, and I didn't want to discard them, so I thought I'd do an experiment, see how they would do in the winter. If you haven't seen that video, go ahead and look back a few, 3 or 4 videos ago and see how we got that started. So like I said, normally I wouldn't garden in the winter, and I'd normally be most likely outside in my garden shed or thereabouts. Right now this is the only warm place I have to work since there's a couple feet of snow outside, and my garden shed and the garage are quite nippy. Today I'm going to share with you the progress of the little starts over the last 3.5 weeks, and then we're going to pot them up today. So today they've gotten quite large compared to the last time I showed you. They were just little teeny tiny guys. So they're doing okay. They are starting to curl a little bit. I'm not sure exactly why. They're in such little tiny pots that I'm sure they're getting potentially root bound and maybe not a lot of nutrients. They've been under the grow light and they've kind of outgrown the grow light, and as you can see here, they're starting to get buds for the tomatoes, which typically at this age you don't want that to happen. You want them to get a really good healthy root structure, so I'll probably be taking those off after I pot them up. I went ahead and filled up the containers with soil, and I put a little of fertilizer, so I added a little bit of this down-to-earth BioFish 772. It's kind of just an all-purpose fertilizer. At the local hardware store where I used to live said they use it on all of their plants as they're growing and processing and selling. So I figured, well, if it's good for them and their plants look beautiful, then I'll just switch to them. I do use a different one for like my blueberries, things that are more acid, but I don't technically use something that's specific to tomatoes or specific to a particular vegetable. And I've had pretty good results with it. Let's get started. And we're just gonna dig little holes to accept. I didn't water this, I left it dry so I could water it in afterwards. So let's take a peek at what you want to give a gentle tug. Squish, 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 gentle tug. Oh wow, yeah, look at those roots. You see this root system. So we're just going to massage these a little bit just to encourage them to not just keep wrapping around. Don't want to mess with them too much. Typically I would use these 3-inch containers first, and they wouldn't be so root bound, but because these containers are about that same size, it doesn't give them a whole lot of room. And this technically should not be the size that they would live their life in. I would need bigger containers, but I don't have anything bigger, and I usually keep all of my pots when I'm purchasing plants, and just so I always have a stash of something to fall back on when I need it. So I kind of feel like these are gonna remain in here for the season, the winter season. Okay, so typically if I had a taller pot, I would plant this much deeper. I'm just gonna call that good. Press it down, add a little bit more soil to it. Just to get it up across the stem as much as possible, and it will just potentially grow more roots. So let's see what that looks like. Looks pretty good. When I water this, it may settle a little bit. I can always add more soil. So that's one. So then let's go ahead and pot up the rest. And I don't normally garden in the winter, but these little guys, they had a different idea. And so I'm going with it. It's kind of fun. It's fun to see how they will turn out. Okay, there's that one. And I'll just look at these other two done. I think they're gonna be happy. They were drying out. I was having to water them every day in these little tiny pots, and when their leaves kind of started to curl a little bit, I thought maybe they were under a little bit of stress. I did take them out from their grow light the other day and set them in the living room next to the window on the credenza to see how they do. And again, it's cold out, and I think it was too close to the window because all of these leaves, all of the branches curled under. And I was like, they don't like it there. And then I put them back under their grow light, and the next morning they were all splayed out again. Oops. Really don't want your leaves to touch the soil. Typically in a garden, out in the garden bed, you'll put some type of mulch over the soil so that you won't get any soil-borne diseases on the plants. And that typically can pick it up if they're touching the soil. So this one's kind of drooping down and touching it, so I'm just gonna pinch that one off. And look at the others. This one's kind of low too. So I'm gonna pinch that off too. I think that's pretty much the lowest one. And these bag soils, or maybe they don't have the potential as much for soil-borne diseases, but again, it's an experiment. I guess we're gonna find out. Okay, so now we'll water them in. I typically save a lot of these plastic things that you get from the bakery or from takeout. The lids also are usually pretty sturdy, so they can be a dish underneath too. So I'll keep, as you saw, I have these all in this little tray. No cost, because obviously I got it with something. I also keep these salad containers. They fit when I'm growing or transporting. They fit these little containers really good inside here. I can usually squish 4 of them in there. They're obviously good for when you're watering. We're gonna set it in this guy and water. So we'll water this guy in. And all the soil was very dry. So we're gonna water it in until it comes out the bottom. And then probably water it a little bit more. Let's do this guy too. Normally I'd probably do this over by the sink. Okay, that came out the bottom pretty good. I'm gonna give it a little bit more. Okay. Then we'll put this over in this one and check this guy. A little bit more just to make sure. And if you're wondering about my watering can, yeah, it's from like 1985. We'll just do the last 2. Gardening and growing your own starts and seeds, you can go a long way if you just take the time to keep your containers. All of these, I didn't purchase any of these. All of these came from, over the years, starts that I, usually they're flowers, because I usually start all of my own seedlings for gardening, for vegetable gardening, by seed. And then usually these have been like flowers or something, but I will keep them. Where I used to live, there was a gardening center that annually would have this big pile of plastic containers just for you to come and take for free before they went to recycling. And so I would stop there a few times and just pick up as many containers as I felt I could store or use. One of the things you do want to do before you use anything, either that you've purchased a plant in or that you've collected or gotten from someplace, is always wash them really good. Wash them in hot soapy water. May use a little bit of bleach to sterilize them, because you don't know if they might potentially have some kind of issue from the previous plant. So it can be a little bit of a hit and miss with that. These particular plants are a determinate variety. So on tomatoes, you have indeterminate and determinate plants. So a determinate plant means that it already has a predetermined size that it should grow and how much fruit it should set. An indeterminate variety will just continue to grow. If you didn't stake it, it would lay on the ground. It'll continue to do shoots off of it. And if you don't prune it, it could just grow wild. Of course, you do want to prune them so that you can limit its growth and it puts more energy into setting fruit. But these particular ones, I'm not too worried about as far as putting them into smaller containers because they'll probably just grow as big as they can based on their container. I did do some in grow bags this summer and I grew 5 or 6 of this particular plant, and I put some in grow bags and then I ran out of grow bags, so then I left some in like the 3-gallon containers and treated them all the same way, planted them all in the same soil, etc., etc. And the ones that were in the smaller pots didn't get nearly as big as the ones in the grow pots or the bigger pots. Now there might have been a little bit of a difference because they were in a plastic container versus a grow pot where they get more air through the fabric. And my experience has been when I grow them in containers, they just don't get nearly as big. So I don't expect these to get really enormous, especially since they're determinate. So we're gonna prune off the flower buds on these. It's kind of painful to do so because I'm like, oh, I'm so close to getting tomatoes. But right now at this early stage, you really want to put their energy into root growth and a healthy plant, and they will bud out again. So we're going to go ahead and just pinch off the flowers, the little tiny flower buds. And let me see, I'll do this little guy too. The other thing that I will do is after they get a little bit bigger is, as you can see, this is the main stalk growing up. Here's the main stalk continuing. And then right here, what we call this little armpit, right here, it's starting a new tomato plant. So this little guy coming out right here would be, if I was to pinch that off and grow little roots off of it, which it would grow, and then put it in soil, it'd be a whole new tomato plant starting with a central stalk going up. And then as you can see, here's the main stalk still growing up. These are the leaf stems that are coming off of it. Those are normal, those are not new shoots. But this one coming right out of the V, out of this armpit, is a new shoot. And to manage the size of your tomato plant, you can pinch those off. In this case, I'm not willing to pinch those off right now because I don't think this plant's gonna get that big anyway, but I'll monitor it. So then the stalk is continuing right here, and then you can see that it's now continuing right here. And eventually, out of these little armpits, they'll have additional sprouts coming out. And then I'll decide at some point how I want to prune it. Let's get these two back here. Okay, so now I've switched them out, and the two that I haven't touched or pruned are right here. So I'm really torn. If I want to take them off, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna leave these two. I'm gonna leave these two with flower buds on them and see how they perform based on the two that I took off. And that'll just be interesting to see how they do. All right, well, here's our finished product. We've got our 2 pruned ones on this side and our 2 flower buds on this side. I will monitor them over the next month or 2, take some photos along the way. Hopefully I'll get some fruit. I'll touch back in the near future and show you how they're doing. Thanks for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.